some of the things that he has framed as questions are clearly designed to generate traffic, generate digital content. And he needs to decide, is he a politician, a serious politician, or is he a social media content creator? Because there is a friction, there is a contrast between those two functions.
You said this week, it was an interview with Asma Mir, one of my colleagues here at Times Radio, that you thought there was a danger we could move to a police state if we have a crackdown on social media. Is that something that you think is very realistic in terms of happening, that actually we become more authoritarian or closer to authoritarian countries if we start to either ban or regulate social media companies?
Well, look, this is about a balancing act. I'm a big believer in freedom, personal freedom, and freedom of speech. But freedom of speech is not an unqualified freedom. There have always been parameters and limitations. You know, you are a broadcaster. Your company knows that it cannot knowingly print lies. It cannot knowingly defame people, that it has a duty, not just a legal duty, but a moral duty to be a accurate chronicler of events and broadcaster of facts. And you know, your company, your brand has been successful for centuries playing within those parameters. What I'm saying is that the new media companies, the social media companies, have the same duty as you do, both moral, and they should have a legal duty to uphold truth and honesty and not spread lies and disinformation. But there is also a balancing act, because what we have seen across the world, it is very, very easy, perhaps for the right reasons, to go down a very dangerous path towards oppressive censorship that breaks that tradition of freedom of speech that we enjoy in the UK, that throws the baby out with the bathwater and actually makes disinformation easier to propagate in unregulated spaces. So there is a balancing act. I think at the moment, the conversations I've had when I went to see the social media companies in the West Coast of America and in New York is that they need to step up and they need to do more to discharge their duty, so that we don't have to go down this route, which I worry the Labour Party is heading towards, where they are policing what people think and what people say, even within those traditional parameters that I described earlier.
I've got a comment. My producers dug out some figures here. Elon Musk commented 31 times in the past 5 days on the riots, including Keir Starmer, two-tier Keir. He's got the ability to reach 193 million people on his platform. He's not simply just going to roll over, is he, though, and just say, yeah, I'll bring in some tighter regulations. He is part of the problem, isn't he?
Well, look, powerful media moguls are nothing new. You look back through history, both in the United Kingdom and the United States of America, we have always had people with a very influential voice. And the people with the most influential voice have the greatest duty to use their voice thoughtfully and in a balanced way. So I've never met Elon Musk, but I do know a number of people that are very senior at X. And when I was over in the States most recently, I had meetings with very, very senior executives, and I discussed their duty to protect the people that use their products, to make sure that they don't disseminate disinformation. Now, people have a right to have a view and have an opinion. I don't always agree with those views and those opinions. And as politicians, we should expect criticism. And sometimes that criticism comes from powerful people. It's the nature of the job that we do. The difference is not someone expressing an opinion, but when we see these international bot farms, whether they're in Russia or elsewhere, pumping out provocative and deeply dishonest content specifically designed to stir up anger and disorder here in the UK. Those are things which must be dealt with. And that was the demand that I made of the social media companies when I went across to the States, and also the protection of children. Child protection incredibly important in the online space.
Were they receptive?
And those are the two issues that.
Were they receptive, James Cleverly? I mean, I know they're private conversations, but when you went over and you met these senior executives at X and the like, were they sort of like, yeah, or did they actually say, no, you have a point and we're going to do something about it? Because going by Elon Musk's interventions over the past 2 weeks, it appears that, even if they were receptive, they haven't particularly listened to those siren warnings from yourself.
Well, as I say, we shouldn't conflate different things. Elon Musk having a view, even if I fundamentally disagree with some of the things he says, is legitimate. That is fine. Making sure, and the companies recognise that it is in their interest to keep their products palatable to their users. And I discussed, and as you say, I won't go into details of private conversations, but I discussed how it is in their interest that their products do not become synonymous with child sexual exploitation, that their products don't become synonymous with the stirring up of racism or anti-Semitism or facilitating terrorism, and that their products are not seen as being a free space for state-sponsored propaganda and disinformation to be disseminated. And I explained that that was in their interest. They were very receptive to that. They, of course, made the free speech argument, which I understand and respect. And the balance between the two is a tricky path to navigate, but that is where ongoing conversations need to be had. I'm slightly worried, actually, that the Labour Party have kind of relegated the seniority of the people engaging with these tech firms. When the Conservatives were in government, it was the Deputy Prime Minister and myself, two of the most senior members of the British government, that engaged. My understanding that has now been downgraded as a relationship to the digital secretary, who's a very professional politician, great person. But the tech firms will perceive that as the British government taking these issues less seriously rather than more seriously. I think it's something that at least the Deputy Prime Minister and the Home Secretary should be doing.
You said in your answer to that last question that Elon Musk was raising legitimate questions, and that's a legitimate, that's legitimate for him to be able to do so in order to not curtail free speech. Can I ask you, in your opinion, has Nigel Farage's interventions, have they been legitimate over the past 2 weeks?
Well, I think that I think some of the things that he has framed as questions are clearly designed to generate traffic, generate digital content. And he needs to decide, is he a politician, a serious politician, or is he a social media content creator? Because there is a friction, there is a contrast between those two functions. As politicians, we have a duty to think very, very carefully about what we do and very, very carefully about what we say. And this is universally true. This is not just about him. And what we must do is not intentionally reinforce gossip and rumor, particularly if it has serious real world implications. And so, the question that he will need to ask himself, and perhaps others as well, is, do you believe Parliament is an important institution where serious decisions are made and the country is governed? Or is it just part of a PR operation for clicks and likes and monetized content? That is the question I would pose to anybody and everybody when commenting about very, very sensitive issues like the brutal murder of those little girls in Southport.
Do you think he's come down on the wrong side of this argument? Do you think that actually he was trying to intentionally stir up violence across the country?
Well, I can't know what his thinking and motivations were. The point I'm saying is we all have to be thoughtful and careful.
Okay, just final question, James Cleverly. What is the Conservative Party going to look like under your leadership? Are you going to be able to make it that broad church that can bring in anybody who might be wavering towards reform, but at the same time actually make sure that the Liberal Democrats don't take another 20 seats off you at the next general election? How do you do it?
Well, we've got to recognise that in order to govern, we need a majority in the House of Commons. And I want to make sure that that is what we achieve at the next general election. In order to do that, we need to win back people who previously voted for us, who at this election voted for Labour or voted for Reform, or in some parts of the UK voted for the Lib Dems, or the many people that formerly voted Conservative that stayed at home. In order to do that, what we need to do is listen carefully to what they told us at the last general election. And they told us over and over again, they hated the infighting. They wanted us to actually deliver on our promises. And a lot of the feedback that I got is that we had slipped into this kind of rather angry tone. And people don't vote necessarily for negatives, they vote for positives. So we should listen to that and we should learn from that. And that is why we should put forward, I think, a conservative agenda of lower taxes, of defending our people both at home and overseas. That's protecting our borders, police officers, 3% spending on defence. It also means that we need to protect our public services and make sure that they are fit for the future, and that we should give people freedom and opportunity, both economically and in their lives. And I think if we put that across in a positive spirit, in an optimistic tone, clearly with a commitment to the British people rather than self-interest and introspection, I think we can win back voters from all those parties where they drifted off, because we pushed them away. Our behaviour pushed those voters away. And if we change our behaviour, reset our tone, we can bring people back from all the places where we lost them at the last general election.
James Cleverly, thank you very much.